Epinaman is a small community east of Asamankese in the eastern region. Like many communities, illegal mining is wreaking havoc, and Epinaman is not spared. Joyce Wawonyo lives far in the Epinaman forest. She's witnessed the terrible effects of illegal mining firsthand. The miners first offered to buy her out of the land. She refused, and now they are threatening her.
One
day, the miners came and asked me to pack out. I refused, so they excavated the land around us. They made a circle around my house, destroying my farmland. I put all my energy into that farm. Now, my family and I don't even know what to do.
Joyce is now 43 years old with 5 children. She says her experience with illegal miners was scary.
3 months when I say 4 months.
The miners threatened me many times. They even told me that they had already bought the land from someone. I still didn't move. There are days I'll be cooking in my kitchen and they'll be digging just in front of me. I need help.
Joyce is not alone. In the Pinaman forest, many households are seen abandoned with the land all destroyed. Chief of the area, Osa Berima Owariasari Pinkro III says activities of illegal mining are getting out of hand.
I am helpless. Galamsa wang ayo awang kata swa ubesu. Sebitu a meminka. Mintu I will not be part of it. Minka. I will never be part of it. And see. You can't drink any water. You can't drink it. The streams and all this are all polluted. You can't.
Oh, my Sarah, oh, my Sarah,
Members of the Ghana Christian Council also visited the area to assess the level of devastation caused by illegal mining as they prepare to take a stand against activities of galamsey.
It is greed and selfishness is what is killing us. And this will appeal to the church, will appeal to the mosque, will appeal to everybody, politicians, and everyone. That look, let us be concerned.
Are we a serious nation? Do we have leadership? Do we have institutions? Do we have Christians in this area? I am really overwhelmed and I need to weep. It is better late than never.
So for me, I'm calling on our leaders to lead. Somebody will have to control these young men in the galamsey industry. Somebody will have to educate them, and they will stop. But where there are no leadership, then things go way.
For them, there's nothing prayer can't resolve.
That which is wrong. We are guilty of raping and destroying.
For Joy News, Michael Ashale.
Oh Lord, heal our nation. Your word says that if our people will have.
So that is my colleague Michael Ashale, right there engaging members of the Christian Council of Ghana as they took the initiative to go to these sites and see for themselves what the ravages are of galamsey. And of course, we shared that story for effect about that woman in Pinaman who says basically galamseyers have taken over her entire land surrounding her. The chief says he is helpless. Well, today we explore a critical angle of galamsey that we often tend to ignore. It's about the health hazards of the situation that we are facing. Joining us for that conversation, Dr. Abdul Wadud Momen. He is Senior Lecturer, School of Mines and Built Environment at the University of Energy and Natural Resources in Sunyani. We also have Raymond Kujawo Defed, Assistant Lecturer at the same department of the University of Energy and Natural Resources, also in Sunyani, and joining the conversation as well, Dr. Rejoice Selom Rekujebi, Lecturer also at the same institution in Sunyani. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Good
morning.
Good to have you. And I believe we'll shortly be joined by Dr. Rejoice as well. Doc, a very good morning to you, Dr. Rekujebi.
Good morning, sir.
It's a pleasure having you. So,
thank you.
I'll start the conversation with you, Doc. There's this study, this piece that you've put together in recent times talking about the use of mercury in galamsey or illegal mining and what the effects are. I don't know whether you got to watch snippets of that video that we just showed where this woman in Pinaman and the chief is talking about, or they are talking about how helpless they are. I don't know whether you saw it before we came on air.
No, I didn't.
All right. So just hold your horses for me.
I didn't see the video, sorry.
Right. Just hold your horses for me. Let me bring in my two guests in the studio. I'll start with you. Both of you have seen the video, basically. What are your quick reflections? I know the topic is, well, the health hazards, the consequences on our landscape and all of that. But seeing what you did, listening to the rhetoric, what people are saying about galamsey, what is your quick reaction to that?
Well, I think we are on a brink of something we are not aware of. In 2012, the military intelligence informed the industry that if we don't do anything about galamsey or illegal mining, we would invite civil war. And to me, these are just progressive indicators of what they forewarned us. But it's rather unfortunate. If you look at what is happening now, there is nothing better than gold. And so when people have invested in gold, they will do whatever they want to do to get their returns back. But now that they've gone to farms or communities and about to eject people, I think it is past time for us to, do something about it. We recently had a transformational dialogue at the University of Energy and Natural Resources. We intend to have it as an annual event. And on point 1 of the communique we sent to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, especially through the Minerals Commission Board, point 1 was that we all have to speak about it. And we think that that is even working now. Everybody knows that we need to speak about it and hold people accountable. I'm sad to hear the chief being helpless because everywhere there is galamsey, the chiefs have the final say. They have the final say before the people start working. So
you say the chiefs have the final say?
The chief have the final say.
Really?
I used to be in the industry.
Because the rhetoric of the chiefs has been different. Have you listened to Otumfuo in recent times,
yes,
parrying the blame and all of that?
Yes, but they have the final say. I used to work for Goldfields, and I'm ready to mention that. And we had a concession in Bakonka. We made a mistake by going to a lower chief to greet them and introduce ourselves before going to the higher chief. And the higher chief said, because we went to the lower chief first, he would not let us work there. And Goldfields as a company packed. We never did exploration on that license. So the chiefs, to me, have the final say. We always go to them first to seek their permission. So that is what I say, that if we can bring the chiefs into the licensing procedure and give them more powers and hold them responsible because they all have jurisdictions, and if they say there shouldn't be funeral in a particular period, there is no funeral. If they say there shouldn't be galamsey, chiefs are succeeding in that in the country.
Right. So,
yes.
so that chief you just saw,
yes,
who says he is helpless, there's
yes,
nothing he can do.
Yes.
I mean, he's done everything, and these people are still at post. You saw how they are dug around his community.
That is, yes, yes.
Are you saying he is merely feigning it?
No. He is rather unfortunate. He is fixed in that because then he's not that he should speak to the traditional chief or the paramount chief of his jurisdiction. maybe he's just a very small chief, because the chiefs have the final say. Even with documents from the Minerals Commission, if the chiefs say no, you can't start work. No.
If the Minerals Commission gives out concessions and grants, people the license to go and mine, can a chief say no?
Yes, that's the example I'm telling you of. That we as a company had a license from Minerals Commission and started working. But when we got to that chief's jurisdiction, we went to greet a lesser chief before coming to him. And he said no, and we had to pack. Gold Fields as a company packed from doing exploration in Bakunka in the Riosu area. And I was on that project. That's why I'm saying it.
Did you eventually get back?
No. We went through all the procedures, had meetings, did everything we could do, but the chief said no. And so
in other words, the chiefs are more of an important part of the puzzle than what we're making it seem, or they are making it seem?
No, we haven't authorized them to be, but they do it in the background. There is nowhere that Galamsey is going on that the chiefs are not aware of. You always have to seek their permission. Yes.
That paints quite a picture about this entire enterprise. But let me bring in Dr. Momin as well. What is your reaction to that?
Yes, so I sincerely sympathize with the woman. This is a very innocent woman, a very poor woman who probably depends on this land, and sometimes she might even be doing backyard gardening to feed herself.
And she's not alone. Pardon the interjection. You know of cocoa farmers who have said that they've literally been compelled to sell because they dig all around you, and eventually they are using the very chemicals we're going to be talking about. Your land becomes unproductive and you're forced to sell to them dirt cheap.
Yeah, so that has to do with resource extraction and environmental security. They virtually have displaced these people off their livelihood, basic livelihood activities, and you would actually have to naturally sympathize with the woman and all those her neighbors within the same community.
Right.
Yeah, because it also has to do with they not only do the extraction, the excavations, but they also do the ore processing within the same environs. End up using mercury, washing mercury into the soil and the water bodies as well. So the people, the woman and her neighbors within the same community are virtually left with nothing to survive rather than health risk, very high health risk.
Right. So let's get into this latest study, and I'll have Doc tell us a bit more about that, especially as she didn't watch the video and so couldn't comment on it. Dr. Reku JB. So I would have you come in here on this latest study that has been put together by your outfit, of which we're speaking. Give us on air an executive summary of what this is all about. In fact, what was the trigger? What was the rationale behind this latest study?
Okay, so this study was actually sponsored by Danida, and it has several components. One component had to do with assessing the chemical composition of the soils and then the water that are in these mining communities. And the component I worked on sought to assess the local knowledge and perceptions of miners on the risk associated with the mining activities and then how they cope with these risks. I also looked at the challenges and prospect of formalization of artisanal small-scale mining, and finally looked at the receptivity to environmentally friendly mining alternatives. So the point is that mining has been done over the years, but in recent times, there's been several issues associated with it. The government placed a ban on mining activities, and we were all hopeful that things will turn out well. So even at the time of the ban, that was when data was taken, and it was realized that miners in several areas were not aware of the ban, especially those in the northern part of the country. So data for the study was taken from the Amansia West, from the Wasa-Memfi East municipality, and also from the Talensi district in the Upper East region. So after doing all this, we realized that, in fact, a lot had to be done for the mere fact that people in the northern part of the country were not aware that small-scale mining activities had been banned. When the activity had been banned for close to a year, they didn't know about it. So basically it was to assess their knowledge, their perceptions about the risk associated with the mining activity that goes on in their locality.
So that's a good executive summary you've just delivered for us of this latest research piece put together by, of course, the University of Energy and Natural Resources in Sunyani. But let me come into the studio as well. When it comes to artisanal mining, small-scale mining, we know what component it contributes generally in terms of the gold revenues we get. I think recently we heard the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources talking about the fact that it contributes about 40% of whatever the revenue we rake in from gold. But there's also that component which they tend to use, which is using some chemicals that disturb our environment. There's mercury, there's cyanide, there are so many other things. Let's start with mercury, Raymond. What exactly does it do? Why is it crucial to the mining process when it comes to small-scale miners? And what is its impact on our environment?
So, thank you. To start with, yes. During the extraction process, after they had identified an ore, crushed it, and have those concentrates, they need to put them together. And Mercury does a very wonderful job by amalgamating the gold out of it. Mm. So they prefer it. Our concern, or the concern now, is the process, how they handle it. Mm. Mercury is it's very dangerous for the human being. Mm. So we need to just, let it be wherever it is. But the way they handle it with their handkerchief, fingers, they actually have some ingested in them. Right. So those people already have about 20 years to see the effects of mercury affecting them.
So it's a health recipe for disaster.
Yes, it's a very serious one. And then as they work, they also contaminate the environment. Now, wherever they work, there will be mercury contamination. But my concern now is that whenever it rains, that contamination extends to other parts, to other leaves, to other roots, and then enters our food chain. And that is why we have to be concerned to that. They may be doing it in maybe Western region, or wherever they're doing it, but we think we are in Accra. Food comes from those places and may be contaminated as well. So that is the risk. Mm.
For you, Abdul Wadud, what else can you say about mercury and its use? Because yes, we see them. In fact, you see some of them, like you said, putting them together, because it's not something that can drain through a handkerchief, for example. So some of them will even have them in bottles, small bottles, others. There's also this bit. Does red mercury exist, or is it just a myth? Just quickly on that.
I think there is a variety of it, a derivative of mercury, yes. But
that has a reddish tint.
Yes, but I'm not an expert on that. So.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Red mercury does exist.
Okay.
And they use it in the small-scale miners. Use it in not just small-scale miners. Permit me to say the artisanal and small-scale miners. Most of them use it. Not all of them. Okay. Use that for ore processing. Mm. Yes, to extract their gold.
Okay. And in terms of the same question that I posed to Raymond, why the use of mercury? He's addressed part of that in terms of how easy it is to aggregate, the gold. It's a very simple process. Apart from that, what other measures could they be using?
Yes, I just returned from Maputo last week, and we had a very intensive discussion on this. Some of the mineral processing technologies and techniques for artisanal and small-scale miners, and we realized that cyanide is the most effective technology, chemical to use for ore extraction, and it has a recovery rate of about 80% and higher than even mercury.
Right.
But most of them tend to use mercury because it's the easiest to use. Cyanide involves a lot of procedures and processes that would help them, and they just want to cut the corners and go straight to be able to use to get their gold within the shortest possible time.
Right.
But the recovery rate of mercury is lower than cyanide, as we per se. And then also the health hazard.
So with mercury, there's more wastage, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay.
And yet it helps them to save their own time, and it rather causes more harm to soil, to water bodies, and to people's health than cyanide will do, though both of them are chemicals. Yep. So recently the government has launched the gold catcher technologies for them to use, which is a mercury-free technology. That is another appropriate technology for the ASM practitioners to use for gold processing and extraction as well. If you refer to the Minamata Convention on Mercury, it is a United Nations convention that seeks to address the use of mercury in small-scale mining across the globe. And the objective of that is to have party countries eliminate, if possible, where possible, eliminate the use of mercury, where not possible, reduce the use of mercury in gold production, especially with regards to the ASM sector, because of the dangers involved in using mercury, the health hazards involved in use of mercury, to those who use it themselves and to those who do not use it as well. In the course of the Minamata Convention on the Elimination of Mercury, we did some study for the Minamata Secretariat. And what we discovered was that I was just trying to pull up the results of some of my colleagues who went on site, and they tried to test the urine concentration of mercury on people's urine and also blood and also water. People who are involved in small-scale mining, artisanal and small-scale mining, and people who live within the community but do not practice small-scale mining, and people who are in other neighborhood of where ASM activities are taking place.
Wow.
So when they sampled this urine and did the concentration test of mercury, they realized that the people who practice ASM and who actually apply mercury in all processes.
That is an artisanal small-scale mining. Right.
They have highest mercury concentration in their urine. And you can imagine, urine goes through the kidneys, the gallbladder, the liver. So you can imagine the health hazards of that. And people who live within the same neighborhood but do not practice ASM, artisanal and small-scale mining, have lesser but beyond the threshold that one would say is a safe threshold for anyone to have mercury concentrations in your system. And people who live within the neighborhood outside where small-scale mining activities are taking place, yet are affected within the buffer zones of small-scale mining, they also have lesser concentration of mercury in their urine, but also at a higher level threshold beyond WHO lower limits of mercury concentration that can lead to health hazards. And that is in the Upper East region, in Dumasi in the Bono region, and also in the western corridors of the country.
It's interesting that you put it that way. It means that if you were to pick an ordinary Joe maybe from this end of town and sample their urine and pick someone from those zones that you're mentioning, the disparity would be very high, which would also mean that these people are basically walking a dance of death. And some of them through no fault of theirs, merely being in the community and being exposed to these things. But speaking of the WHO that you just mentioned, I just took a look at mercury and health and what the World Health Organization says. And I am speechless about the consequences, Raymond, because it talks about after inhalation, ingestion, or dermal exposure, like you said, the way they are handling them, of different mercury compounds. Symptoms include tremors, insomnia, memory loss, neuromuscular effects, headaches, and that's a common one. In fact, I remember certain interactions in the past. Headaches, they're always complaining of headaches. Cognitive and motor dysfunction, hearing and walking impairments. I mean, in the immediate term, what can we do before we get to cyanide? Because I know cyanide is also a chemical. It also is poisonous, and I stand to be corrected. What can we do at least for some of those engaging in this, using their bare hands, using handkerchiefs and the rest? What is the immediate thing we can do for them? Because in the next 3 months, 6 months, someone likely could be suffering devastating health effects.
Yeah. Our sister university at Takwa, that's the University of Mines and Technology, they developed ahead of the gold catcher some retorts that didn't use mercury, and then tried to just supply it for the miners freely. But they refused to use them, though that was mercury-free. But they said they couldn't see the mercury being processed, their gold being processed, so they stopped using it. And this was a very expensive investment. The same university did a similar research, just as my colleague just spoke about. Even in Dunkwan and other places where they studied, even the hair of the people there are contaminated.
Even the hair?
Even their hair, yes. Yeah.
Wow, it means it's taken over.
Yes. And so we've been, doing the very best we can, but at the moment we are in a big mess.
So what protective gear can you use to protect yourself when you're dealing with mercury? What can you use?
Yeah, they could use the other mask, the bigger mask that covers the face, that they can,
So gas masks?
Gas masks, yes.
Right.
And then they can use appropriate gloves, but they really don't care when you meet them. They've kind of given up. It's sad, and so we need to go back to the drawing board and see, what to do.
Yes. Let me bring in Dr. Reku Jebi. Thanks for your patience, for holding for us. I just wanted us to lay the foundation of the conversation. But when I look at the problem statement of this latest piece that your university has put out, it says pollution with mercury is a global problem, and that is on page 7, because mercury is toxic and can accumulate in the food chain and be long-range transported around the globe. So we're talking fisheries, we're talking the human being and all of that, industry and all of that. But the other aspect, which your colleagues in the studio have spoken of, is cyanide. Cyanide, too, is a chemical, and it is dangerous. But why is cyanide a better option compared to mercury?
I think Dr. Mumen mentioned about the recovery rate, which is basically the issue. But cyanide is more dangerous compared to mercury. In fact, cyanide kills faster than mercury. Mercury can accumulate even in the atmosphere for a very long time. It stays in the human, but it takes time. And so from our research, we realized that miners were not so much aware of the health effects of the mercury that they use, because it takes a long time, sometimes 20 years, before they see some of the symptoms. And so we realized that we asked specific questions in this research, finding out if mercury causes respiratory problems. And with that, just approximately 18% of the miners said yes, it does. When asked whether ingestion and inhalation of mercury causes stomach disorders, more than half of the respondents said yes. But just 10% indicated that inhalation of mercury destroys the nervous system of humans, and long exposure to mercury can also cause cancer. So the miners, basically, there's limited knowledge as far as the long-term effect of mercury is concerned. For the short-term effect, yes, the headaches and then the stomach disorders, yes, they could see. But even with that knowledge, they still will not stop using mercury because it is faster for them. And I remember in the Wasame East municipality, a respondent saying that, mercury is not harmful at all. If it is ingested, it only causes temporal stomach upset. So they are calling the stomach upset temporal, not knowing what the accumulation will do in years to come. It was also realized that some were aware. In fact, about 90% of the respondents indicated that artisanal mining was associated with injury risk. But the 10% who did not allude to the injury risk said that, if you are careful, you will not get injured. So you asked what can be done in the short term. And I think that basically it should be dissemination, it should be education, sensitization, so that these miners will know the exact effect on their health. I'm not sure everybody will stop, but at least it will go a long way to stop a lot of people from engaging in this mining activity. One side of the coin that we haven't really looked at is the other effect, which is not associated with mercury nor cyanide, but had to do with the coping strategies adopted by miners. From the study, 55% of respondents used over-the-counter pain relievers, and 28% used tramadol just to ease the pain, and 10% consume marijuana. 7% just take blood tonic because they think that will boost their immune system. When you look at the average dosage of tramadol among the miners in the study community, it was realized that miners were taking 10 tablets of the 50 milligram dosage of tramadol a day.
That is 500 milligrams a day.
Yes, 50 milligrams, yes, a day. They put it in the Baltic bottles. They put water in it, and then they put it in it, and then they'll just be drinking. So it dissolves in the water. They will be drinking. You may think it's even vitamin C or something they are taking in, but this for me is even more than what they are doing. So we may have to. We don't have to only look at the chemicals they are using, but we should look at how they are coping with the risk, the health risk associated with their activity, and how they are trying to manage it. They feel so tired, so they take these medications just to help them. And for the 10% that take alcohol, for instance, they say, oh, it gives them strength and energy, such that they do not feel the pain and tiredness of the activity they engage in. One key informant indicated that it's become a trend for the young people taking tramadol to ease the pain they go through. Sometimes they behave abnormally, and this takes us from the health risk to social risk. So people, because of the health implications of engaging in mining activities, end up becoming burdens. So this whole thing is a very big chain. It's a long chain that needs to be looked at.
And I'm grateful that you took the time to walk us through, all of these things, because even beyond the health consequences we're talking about, using mercury and all of that, there are also the coping mechanisms, and it appears that is even worse. Look at what she says, unless I did not catch you right. So about 10 tablets of tramadol, each one 50 milligrams, that's 500 milligrams per day. You can imagine what that person is doing to his kidney, his liver, his organs, basically. If the mercury doesn't kill you, the tramadol will kill you. Because these medications, they always have some side effects, but we take them because, well, they will assist us in the medium term, and then we'll stop taking them. This is mind-boggling. But the research also reveals, before you come in, Raymond, Abdul, it also reveals that, look, we're not even, it's not the largest component of miners who are using mercury. We have samples from Tanzania and all of that. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so back in the United Nations Environment Program, we did some research, and my colleagues came up with these statistics that across the group, we have about 19 million artisanal and small-scale gold miners, operators who use mercury.
That's across the world?
Across the world.
Right.
And that every year, this alone produces about 1,000 tons of mercury into the atmosphere, into the water bodies, and also into the soil. And also, the study conducted in Tanzania, the case study there reveals that 98% of ASGM practitioners actually use mercury in ore processing. And out of this 98%, 71% of sites, of those sites are within residential areas, just as the case of the woman that you've shown us.
Right.
71% of that is within where people are actually habitating, which is where the dangers actually lie. And then another data reveals that about the water bodies that are actually contaminated with mercury travel in a day a minimum of 2 kilometers in a day, both underground water and surface water bodies. They carry this mercury in a day and travel to downstream users in 2 kilometers a day.
So if you pollute from point A,
yes,
and let's assume that from points A to B, from each letter of the alphabet, it takes 2 kilometers. It means that in what, a month or so, it would have got to about half of that. And it would just keep going downstream and affect everybody.
So that tells you that whether you live within where these people who use mercury or you live nearby them, you are not safe.
What then, that's a very important point you make. What then does that mean? You know, the Ghana Water Company Limited has spoken about turbidity levels and how it's really difficult now to process water. What then does that mean for all of these water bodies that are being polluted, from which we still process our water? What does that mean?
So that validates the claim of the Water Commission and also the Ghana Water Company. In recent times, they have been complaining that it takes a lot of money, cash, to be able to clean these water bodies, not even to health levels, for people to actually, to get them as potable water for people to use in domestic activities. So that tells you that we actually live in danger. And I will just run it through some of these from the WHO. Studies that have also come in.
So quickly on that, so I can bring in Raymond
as
well.
So the health effects that brought, which causes a lot of water quality, are significantly affected by the turbidity levels, actually emanating from mercury pollution. Okay, so we have a water quality index of at least 500% higher than the upper limit of WHO water potability index, and also another one conducted in the Bono region also comes up with the similar figures, where you have a lot of, you go to a pond and almost all the fish in the pond are dead. So we eat out of the concentrations and contamination of mercury. If you go to the Upper East region, Talensin Nabdan area, where you also have about 5% of people who live within the vicinity of ASM activities where they use mercury have highest concentration of urine, mercury in their urine. So I'll just pause there and allow my colleague to come in.
So talking about formalizing the ASM process and also looking at how we can hone or rope in remote sensing to track these activities, this phenomenon, what do we do from this two-pronged approach? Formalizing the ASM process, what do you mean when you speak of that? Is it about ensuring that maybe they are no longer using mercury, or they are using mercury the right way? And how do we keep track of this? Because this is just a microscopic report you've put together on this. The bigger picture is much larger than what we are seeing here. Raymond.
Well, when we talk about formalizing, to me it's maybe a misnomer. Formalization is already in with us. The ASM, the small-scale mining sector, has been formalized. That's why they have to go for licenses and do their work.
We even have the community mining.
That is it.
Bit as well.
Yes. But the community mining is also not practiced as it should have been. You know, it's tainted too much, in my opinion. But yes, those are the processes. Our industry, the small-scale industry in Ghana, is formalized. Artisanal mining, which is different, has also been lumped up with small-scale mining.
Right.
That is the beginning of our problem, because artisanal miners are not supposed to use the gadgets that the small-scale miners are using. So we've lumped everything together and creating the difficulty we felt in ourselves.
What gadgets are they supposed to use?
Artisanal miners are just supposed to use pickaxes and shovels.
The rudimentary.
The rudimentary.
Okay.
They do it for fun. You know, you find gold at your backyard, and that's what, you know, you just go dig. Today you get something, you don't go again, because it's not your business. The small-scale miners have to go to the Minerals Commission, get a license, have an area, and work with. So formalization is already in process. It is the monitoring process. We are unable to monitor because we don't have the structures. And to make it worse, we are really, really good at being corrupt. Yes.
We're really, really good at being corrupt.
Yes. I'm sorry to put it that way, because when you send people to monitor, it doesn't take long for them to be compromised. Yes, and then they take money from these people to do the wrong thing, and those who don't have the money are always arrested. I can direct you to places you just take your camera there and work with. But the most dangerous part to me is the human resource we are going to waste in the future.
Yeah.
If you drive from Bordier to maybe from Ayamfuri to Bordier around 7 a.m., you see the army of young men who come out. It's an army. It's an army of young men who come out.
Mob.
Just to buy food. You'd have to take your time to drive through them. They are buying food, and within 30 minutes, they've all gone into the bushes to do this. When you take a look at all those places from Wasa Kumasi, and you see how the environment had been damaged, topsoil is no longer available for farming.
Farming purposes.
And that is food security. Everything is intertwined now, and we are in a bigger mess than we are talking about. We need to go back to the drawing board and restructure everything. To me, why they keep hopping from places to places is because they try doing mining blindly. And that's the job of the Geological Survey, to have mapped everywhere for us in the country and telling us that here you have potash, here you have lithium, here you have gold. So those who don't want lithium will just concentrate on gold places, and we have the monitoring organizations to monitor them properly. But then they also need money to do that exploration. And that's where the other problem is. So everything is intertwined. Currently, I don't like the law put in for the Geological Survey. It stifles them of returns that they can put in back to do exploration for the country. So we are in a bigger mess than
we imagine.
Yes.
Before we look at solutions, and the conclusion of this report also has some of those, solutions. Before we do that, I'd like to look at, of course, you saw the members of the Christian Council who were there praying. I don't know whether prayer is the solution. Of course, the God element, you can't take that out. But what is the real work that must be done? We've heard claims by government about what it's doing. We've heard the Otumfuo, or say to the second, you can see it right in front of me, Republic Press. Otumfuo rubbishes government's Galamsey fight. And you've seen that video, what he says about Galamsey and the lack of the will. I am putting that question to you because you started talking about the role of the chiefs and how the buck stops with them. Does the buck really stop with them? As Otumfuo is saying that we are not to blame, go blame the political actors. Your quick take on that, and then Dr. Reku Jebi together with Abdul Wadud will give solutions and we'll wrap. Your quick take.
Yeah, not to disagree with Otumfuo, but the chiefs have a role to play. They are playing some in the background, but what I'm saying is that they need to be empowered to be part of the licensing process and be held responsible. And that is where we'll need Otumfuo and then maybe the House of Chiefs to come in. How do you hold a chief responsible? That is the question we have to answer. But yes, they have the power to declare an area that nobody should mine there. They can do it on a small, as an experiment and continue. We have examples in the country where chiefs have said, no,
if the chiefs continued on that trajectory, would it not create a sort of rift? The Minerals Commission has given a license, you're saying no, and all of that. What do you think that would lead to?
That is when we have to come to a compromise. Because as it is now, even if whenever the Mineral Commission gives out licenses, it is contingent on that agreement that the chiefs will allow you, or the community will allow you. So
all right. Of course, we also know about the community engagement that must go into it before you even mine, and that also brings in the chiefs, the traditional leaders. What is the way forward?
Yes, so
I'll come back to you last 30 seconds. Let's do 45 seconds, both you and Dr. Reku Jebi.
Yeah, so my quick take with regards to the question you posed.
Very quick one.
Quick one is that I remember I was teaching my students resource economics and sustainability appraisals, and the students asked me, so how could we actually, what are some of the traditional systems that could be revoked to assist in this ASM, ASGM, Galamsey issue? And I asked them to give me their ideas. What my students quickly gave me was this. You remember some of our traditional taboos. Do not go for fishing in this river on this particular day. Do not go into the forest on this particular day for logging.
So cultural practices.
Cultural practices. These are some of the psychology behind most of these was environmental sustainability and preservation, and the resource conservation as well. So if you could revisit this, and the traditional rulers are the custodians of these cultural practices and norms. So we would have to encourage them to revisit these things, and let's understand the psychology behind most of them. I put that aside. Talking about the formalization process, I think what I quickly understand out of that is that we need to educate those who are involved in illegal mining, the license application processes. We have to take them through the license application processes, and then also acquisition of concession processes. These are two separate things: to get a license to be a miner, and also to apply for a license to get a concession to do exploration and mining. So, and I am happy you gave me a word which we have used in our proposal, which is the will. We, at the University of Energy and Natural Resources, during our 2-day transformational dialogue, we actually presented a proposal to the public and government. Look, I think that the solutions to illegal mining, which we call galamsey, is not just the sole responsibility of government. You and I have a responsibility to contribute ideas. The general public have a responsibility to contribute ideas. Then the implementation and enforcement of policy and laws reside within the shoulders of government to do that. So if we bring this together, and our proposal was that we, as a university, we have the satellite technology systems, as my colleague said, to avoid the corruption aspect of personnel deployed
we can deploy that.
Around. We would, just as we sit in this room, and you have all the cameras around, we have that facility, which we would sit just on the campus.
Are you making it accessible to government?
Yes, we have given this presentation during our 2-day transformational dialogue.
All right.
And we try to actually talk with government on how we can implement and apply this technology.
All right.
Sit at the comfort, not discomfort of our office room, our control room, and deploy satellite technologies all over the country, and with special focus on most of the areas that are mining.
Dr. Momin, let me bring in the other guests so we can wrap the conversation. Dr. Reku Jebi, for you, what would be the way forward? Unfortunately, so much time has been eaten away. So in some 30 seconds, what's the way forward, briefly?
Okay. Well, basically, we'll have to look at our formalization regime. I think that we need to look at the licensing process again. The licensing process is plagued with several challenges. The process should be simplified. It is also too costly. And so people go through, they pay so much, and then when they come back, they feel that, no, we have to really get the better path and reap the benefits from the cost that they have incurred. The second aspect has to do with training and education. There's the need to communicate to risk to mining communities. So they should know the health impact, not only on the miners, but on the community at large. We should also educate people, miners and the community at large, on the dictates of the mining policies. We should educate them on alternatives to mercury, and then the usage of personal protective clothing for the miners. Finally, we should talk about technical solutions. So we talked about alternatives to mercury. And if possible, government should provide these alternatives at subsidized rates. We cannot talk about all these strategies without mentioning monitoring and evaluation. This is key to the success of anything we want to do. And so we should look at institutional level monitoring, local level monitoring, and we should get all relevant institutions and stakeholders involved. It should not be left to Minerals Commission or Environmental Protection Agencies, Water Resources Commission, Forestry Commission. Everybody, all hands should be on deck to get.
Thank you so much, Doc. You have just a few seconds, if you can. Just a quick one, and then we'll be out of here.
For everything we are currently doing is short-term knee-jerk and reaction. We are being reactionary. So I am thinking of maybe 10 to 20 years. What should be done? How do we want to see it?
So quickly on that.
So we need to review our laws and empower the Geological Survey to let us know what we have so that we can direct people there and let people not go to other places. And in that process, we need to empower the chiefs and hold them responsible.
Empower them, hold them responsible. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining the conversation. We've had Dr. Rejoice Selom Reku Jebi, lecturer with the SMBE Department, University of Energy and Natural Resources in Sunyani. We also had Raymond Kujao Defed, Assistant Lecturer, SMBE, UENR as well, and Dr. Abdul Wadud Momin, Senior Lecturer, School of Mines and Built Environment, also at the University of Energy and Natural Resources. Well, this is how we hang up this conversation, but it's a conversation that has left me with a lot to think about, and hopefully you as well. These brothers and sisters of ours engaging in small-scale illegal mining, these are the health hazards. And they are not just exposing themselves, they're exposing the rest of us, who also, use these water bodies and the rest. Only time will tell where we go from here. There are a lot more conversations we have coming your way from Guta and why they are saying that they are shutting down their shops in Kumasi. And then from tomorrow, right here in Accra, we'll be telling you also about that district log and the poverty levels in our country. Do stay. We'll be right back.